真快。
So you may check the total set. So now we are in week 8.
哦，可以
Still we get 2 more weeks for the lectures. So it's time to start review the materials and prepare for the evaluation. So you can try the past exam papers. So this year the paper will be in a similar form, but it will also be a slightly different. So I will give you details later after we finish all the periods. So in the past couple of weeks, we have been discussing the calculus of variations. So it's another category of solutions to the problem of path planning.
真快。三明治做菜。跟三明治差不多一样。
For the calculus of variations, this part is quite difficult, quite challenging, because there are a lot of mathematical derivation. But this part is also very important, very important. So this method will give you a continuous time solution to the path planning problem in terms of the optimal control. So remember, our problem formulation is we try to model the problem and construct a cost function to represent the control energy, to represent the timing from the starting point of destination, or to model the distance, etc. So the problem is to optimize this cost function. So the problem formulation is we try to minimize cost function. So this cost function contains 2 parts. So the first part is the function of the final state. So this part is only a function of the final state. So the xf, I use this notation to represent this state vector is x. You know it's a state vector. It's not only the location, but could also include location and velocity, etc. So it's the state vector at the time of tf. So this function psi is purely a function of final state. Plus the second part. So the second part is represent some quantity from the starting time to the final time. So we use a function to model this. So for example, this would be a function to represent energy, to represent distance, etc. So we use an L. The function will be in terms of the state vector and the control input. So we notice that the optimal control input, only happens in this function, but not in the final state. So we know your control will not affect your status after the final state. So remember, you may recall our example. So typically, for example, in the pendulum problem, this state may represent the state at time equal to n. But in the control process, we only evaluate the time up to n-1. Because the control at time equal to n will only affect your following state, the state at time n+1. It's already out of our that range. So this is the function we want to minimize. So minimize this function in terms of this u. In terms of this u, is subject to the dynamics of the system. So the dynamics of the system is represented by the differential, by a set of differential equations. In x dot equal to f x u. So your state vector. So in terms of the state vector in the state space, and we have multiple equations here. So the solution to this problem for the control input, we know the control input is actually a continuous type function. So the solution we are expecting is actually a u star, but this u star is a function of continuous time. So you think about here is multiple dimension, not only a single control input. So we may have multiple control input. So if we plot this u in space, in n-dimensional space, we may got a trajectory. So you may think about it. So for example, you have this u star starting from t0, and for example, is a point in the n-dimensional space. So we may have an optimal control trajectory eventually go to this u star df. But certainly this trajectory is unknown. But after we solve this problem, so as we showed in the last lecture, when we solve the different equations, eventually we may have an optimal trajectory. So every point in the trajectory is optimal control to this problem. So the solution to this problem, remember in the previous lectures we derived the solutions. So I just slightly recap our derivation procedure. So you remember our solution procedures is based on that. So if we solve this problem, we may have this optimal control trajectory. But any perturbations, we perturb any, if we make any small perturbation along this control vector, because this one is optimal control trajectory. So if we slightly perturb the control vector, there should be no impact. No impact on the value of the cost function. So it's quite abstract to understand this. So you think about if we have this optimal control, then this optimal control will be always minimize this function. So now if you slightly perturb a point along this trajectory, there should be no impact on the cost function because this trajectory is optimal. So in mathematics, this could be represented by the perturbation of the cost function equal to, so it's just a standard equation, standard mathematical equation. So this perturbation equal to the derivative evaluated at the time and multiplied by delta u. So this should be equal to zero. That means along this optimal trajectory, if you perturb your control input, eventually the effect on the cost function will be zero. So this is the idea. This is the fundamental idea behind our derivation. Why you remember the previous lectures, we got a lot of mathematics. Eventually we said all the terms will be zero. So why we want to do that? Because they have this fundamental theory. So along this optimal trajectory, if you perturb your control input, the impact on the optimal cost function will be zero. So in our problem, we have this cost function and we have this equality constraint. So in order to include this equality constraint into the cost function, remember that we need to augment the cost function. So this is the starting point of our solution. Then secondly, we got this equality constraint. So in order to include this equality constraint into the cost function, so we want to augment the cost function. So remember our second step. So remember this is our first step. Our second step has been to augment the cost function. Augment the cost function is quite similar to what we did before. So it's an augment cost function equal to the original cost function plus the product between the Lagrange multiplier and the equality constraint. So in mathematics, this is represented by this vector multiplied by another function. So I define another function of f, this capital F, is in terms of the control vector, in terms of the state vector and the control input. So I define this new function because if you recall our derivation in the constraint optimization problem, you know we always have a function f equal to 0. To have a f equal to 0, so we define this new function to simulate that function. So we define this f x u equal to this f x u minus x dot. So we know this one is actually equal to 0. So this one is equal to 0 because we have this dynamic equation. So this one is equal to 0. So if this one is equal to 0, then we augment the cost function. So it has no impact on the value of the cost function because this one is equal to 0. So this one is equal to 0, so the product is 0. But that only happens at the optimal control input. So if this u equal to u star, this one will be 0. Then this product has no impact on the cost function, so that we can augment the cost function this way.
Show x
So it's the same equation, that we use in the first part,
show x is
in the constraint optimization problem. So now we can define our cost function, our augment cost function by using the original cost function. So the cost function, the augment cost function should be given by using this theory, and substitute into our original cost function. So this cost function, this augment cost function will be given by. So remember, we only augment the components inside the integral, which represent your control input. I would say represent the process between T0 and Tf. So the first part will be the same, resulting in your final state. This part will be the same. And this part,
棉花就按照这个意思录的。我还有一个 capital fire。
this part will be augmented by this cost function, by the constraint. So this plus this lambda t multiplied by f minus this lambda t multiplied by x dot. So after we define the augment cost function, so the following steps will be quite straightforward. So you just derive or solve this and make the perturbation to be zero. Make the perturbation to be zero, so you will get all the necessary conditions. So in this part, it's important to define the Hamiltonian, to identify where is the Hamiltonian. So the next important step is to define the Hamiltonian. Define the Hamiltonian. Remember, we want to define this part to be the Hamiltonian. This will be defined to be H, given by this X, this L, original function, augmented by our F, augmented by our F. So from here, you know that Y we only use this part. Y we only use this part to augment the cross function from here. So it looks slightly different from what we did in the constraint optimization. In constraint optimization, we need to shift this one to one side to make it zero, and use the whole function to augment the cross function. But here we only use this part. We only use the algebra part of the efficiency. So by using this definition, then the augment cost function is given by the form in terms of hypertonic. So this hypertonic is a function of x, u, and lambda. Now we have this new augment cost function in terms of Hamiltonian. So the following step is quite straightforward. So from this, we can derive the necessary conditions. So the necessary condition for
这个你可以干嘛？你这变成你的红分啦，它就换取这个另一个式，就把这个变成你的多音嘛，就是这个必须有几个音标。这个三换掉了，这跟这个三一样的。你说我想想看，我不懂它上面是不是也是这样写？可是它每次这样写，不是？它每次有写这个。
Differential is zero in response to control perturbations along the optimal trajectory. Because function is zero in response to the control perturbations. Along the optimal trajectory. So we're using this idea to construct the necessary conditions. So you remember, so you can refer to our last lecture notes. You remember from this idea, we make the cost differential oscillator perturbation of a cost function. So this one will be given by, so I will not rewrite the log Maxwell equations. So you know this one will be equal to the perturb to each of the variables. And after that, we set all this term to be zero. The equation is quite similar to this one. So for example, I just do a simple example. So the first term, we have the sine xf. So in the function in terms of the xf, so the cost, the differential equal to the derivative. This derivative is d phi dxf. So multiplied by the perturbation on xf. So it's just the equation similar to this one. So we make the perturbation along xf. If we make the perturbation along xf, this will be equal to the derivative multiplied by the perturbation. So similarly, we need to perturb all the variables. So this one is only a function of xf. so it can only outgot one term. So the h in the function in terms of x u lambda. So this need to be perturbed in terms of three quantities respectively. This will give you three terms. So this one got two terms, so you got another two term function. So you got a more term here. So you can just refer to our previous lecture notes. So these are the same. Then the idea is to set this to be equal to 0. So for the necessary condition, will be all these quantities equal to 0. So you can combine these terms and make this term equal to 0. This will give you all the necessary conditions. So here I will not give you all the details of the derivation again. So I just reveal the necessary conditions that we derived before. So for the necessary conditions to this problem, so you remember that we have three sets of equations. So the first set of equation is dH du. This must be equal to 0. So this dH du equal to 0 is just a set of algebra equation. So it's just a set of algebra equation. So the solution of this set of equation will give you this optimal control. Give you the optimal control. But this optimal control will be in terms of x and lambda. So you got an algebra equation of the control in terms of the state vector and the logarithm multiplier. But at this stage, the x and the lambda have not been solved. So you don't know the value for the x and lambda. But at here, you get a solution of the control input just in terms of x and lambda. So in order to solve x and lambda, we have another two equations. So the first equation is in terms of the dynamics of the logarithm multiplier. So the lambda dot equal to minus dH dx. So this dynamics give you the dynamics of the logarithm multiplier. So another set of equation is just the dynamic equations. We call it constraint. So the x dot is given by dH d lambda. So it's equal to the original constraint function. So this function is given. It's given in the problem. So this function is just the same as what we defined here. It's the dynamics of your system. So in this equation, remember our h, the Hamiltonian is defined by this L plus lambda f. So these three equations is usually known as the Euler logarithm equations.
第三是无音，啥有那个有个在私聊。
So these solutions this equation are the solution to the calculus of variation problem. So the three equations are known as Euler-Lagrange equations.
调理人呐，还干嘛做这些鬼东西？好像他们是
So in order to solve these equations, we also need the boundary conditions. We also need the boundary conditions to solve this equation. So the boundary conditions depends on whether the x0 and our xf is given or not. So there will be two combinations. So the first scenario is the initial state. This x0 is given. If x0 is given, our state is fixed. Given our fixed, then this lambda 0, lambda and t0 will be free to take any value. So it's free
史蒂芬他是 free 啊，
to take
四个东西哦，四个鬼东西。那他这个来这个比特
any values. So if your initial state, your initial location, initial velocity is given, then this lambda is free. So if the x0 is not given, if this one is free, then this lambda t0 will be equal to 0.
停下来。
equal to 0. So these two conditions are related to the initial condition. So we have another two conditions related to the final state. So if the final state is given our fix. So for example, in our pendulum problem, so the final state is given. Final state is given in a particular position at a velocity of 0. So that's given. Then this lambda df will be free. So it's free to take any values. So finally, if the xf is not given, if the xf is not given, it's free, then this lambda df must satisfy an equation. So this is given by this e sine exf. So in this part, in the calculus of variation, so you must know how to derive these equations. So you must fully understand how this mathematics, you know how to derive this Euler-Lagrange equations, how to establish these boundary conditions. So in the last lecture, we also discussed how to solve this problem. So here we got a set of algebra equations, two sets of differential equations. But for the differential equation, it's very difficult to solve by hand. So in the last lecture, I show you how to use the program to solve the problem. So that method is known as the shooting method.
这个是细微。
So in this part, we establish these equations. So this set of problems is typically known as two-point boundary value problem. So So this kind of problem is known as the 2-point
我变了。
boundary value
要
problem.
老板让人以接于老板骗，人家分钱老板。
So it's known as a 2-point boundary value problem because you can think about like this. So assume we have a starting time of t0 and we have a final time of tf, final time of tf. So here we got two sets of differential equations. So when you solve these two differential equations, you may get the trajectory. You may get the trajectory for the lambda of x. So for example, you may get a trajectory like this for the x. But it's only a trajectory. The starting point is unknown. Because remember, in the last example, you remember that our lambda zero is 3. So x0 is fixed. You remember our 1D bounce planning problem. So the x0 is fixed, but the lambda 0 is free. Because the lambda 0 is free, so your trajectory is not fixed. Because your starting point is unknown. So if you start from different starting point, it may end up with different final point. So you got some kind of trajectory, but this set of trajectories are not fixed because the starting point is unknown. So to solve this problem, we use the method known as the shooting method. The shooting method means you shoot from different starting point. You shoot from different starting point until you hit the destination. So remember in the last example, we have our x1, our xf. This one is fixed. So if you start from different starting point, you will got different destination. So you start to shoot from different starting point until you hit the final destination. So this is the idea. This idea that we use to solve this kind of problem. And the MATLAB program help us to do this. So you know our shooting method, we use fsolve. We use fsolve in the MATLAB program to try different starting point. We try different starting point until the distance between your final state and the desired destination will be 0. So that means you hit your destination. So these are the recap of this part. So next, we will discuss some examples to help you to use this method. So first example is we want to minimize scalar function with a half integration from 0 to 1 x x1 square plus x2 square plus u square dt and plus x1 minus x21 square. So we minimize this one with u subject to the dynamics of the system. So it's x1 dot equal to minus x1 plus x2 square plus u and x2 dot equal to minus x2 plus x2 square. So the initial conditions is given by x1 0 equal to 0 and x2 0 equal to 0. So the final condition is this x1 1 and x2 1 are free. So in this problem, we know our T0 equal to 0 and Tf equal to 1. And our control input, just we only got one control input, so it's a scalar, the scalar u. So this part, this function is outside of the integration and only related to the final state. It's only related to the state at the final time of Tf. So this part is actually our function psi. With psi xf in terms of xf. And this part is our function of L with L, x, and u. But you should also remember we got a half and here. So this half should be moved inside the integration to construct the Hamiltonian. And these two functions are the dynamics of the equation. So these two functions are actually our equation x dot equal to f x u. So in this case, we have the x equal to x1, x2. So we got two components of x. So the initial condition for the x1, x2, and the final condition. So the solutions to this problem should be straightforward. So we just use what we established and here. So firstly, we have to construct the Hamiltonian. So this Hamiltonian H, remember the Hamiltonian H is defined by L plus lambda transpose F. So for the L, it's just the function inside the integral. But remember we have a half and here. So it's given by a half x1 squared plus x2 squared plus u squared. So this for L. And for the lambda f, because here we got the two function. We got two functions, f1, f2. F1, f2, so suppose we need two Lagrange multiplier. So because here we got f1, f2. So this one is f1, this one is f2. So from this, suppose we require lambda 1 f1 plus lambda 2 f2 for this product. So some students ask me, in what situation we need this transpose? Why sometimes we have the transpose, and why in some situations we don't have the transpose? We have this transpose because we want to multiply the two vector. Multiply this two vector. So you know this f is it's a column vector. So the f equal to f1, f2. So in this case, the f equal to f1, f2, and this lambda is also a column vector with lambda 1, lambda 2. So in order to multiply these two vectors, so the first one must be transposed into a row vector. So this one, so that we are able to multiply this row vector with this column vector. So that's the reason we require this transpose and here. So if you only got one constraint, then the lambda will be a scalar. So in that case, we don't need the transpose. But it's much easier to remember this term in this way. So this term just means a linear combination of all the constraints. So it's lambda 1, f1 plus lambda 2, f2. If you got another one, it will be plus lambda 3, f3. So like this, you construct all the products. So this will plus lambda 1, and this f1. f1 is given by minus x1 plus x2 square plus u. So this f1 and plus lambda 2 f2. So f2 is given by minus x2 plus x2 square. So make sure you fully understand how this Hamiltonian is constructed. So the Hamiltonian is constructed by the original cos function, but in this case, we only use the function inside the integration and augment with the product between the Lagrange multiplier and the constraint. But remember, here we don't need the derivative part. So if you refer to our definition, you know this part will be dealt with separately. So we need the integration by parts to remove this part, eventually remove this part. So once the Hamiltonian is constructed, so next we can use the three set of equations. So these are the Euler Lagrange equations. So our three set of equations. So So the first set of equations is given by this DHU. So we know this should be 0, but we can solve from the H to see what are the DU. So let's check the equation for H. So the first term is just x1 squared using x2 squared. So all these are 0. So this u squared, the derivative will give us 2u. So 2u multiplied by half give us u for this part. So it's plus this lambda 1, this x1, this is 0, this x2 squared, 0, and u. So this will become lambda 1. Lambda 1 for this part. And for the third part, it's only related to x2 squared. So the derivative in terms of u will be 0. So in this equation, dh du is supposed to be 0. So this is supposed to give us the optimal control. The optimal control is given by minus lambda 1. So this is our optimal control. But now the lambda 1 is unknown. So in order to solve this lambda 1, we need another set of equations. So remember our second set of equation is this lambda dot equal to minus dh dx. So remember this equation. So here the x equal to x1, x2, and the lambda equal to lambda 1, lambda 2. So we will solve lambda 1 dot equal to minus dh dx1. So we will solve the dh dx1 from the h. So the first term gives us 2x1. So this will be x1. So that's 2 squared is 0. This u squared will be 0. So here we got minus lambda 1. So minus lambda 1. The next 2 squared will be 0. This u will be 0. So this x2 squared will be always be 0. So this equal to minus x1 plus lambda 1. So lambda 2 dot given by minus dh dx2. So in the equation for h, the x1 squared will be 0. This x2 squared will be 2x2. So we got x2. So this u squared will be 0. So the x1 will be 0. This x2 squared will be 2x2 multiplied by lambda 1. So we got plus this 2 lambda 1 x2. This u will be 0. So this minus lambda 2. So minus lambda 2 plus this 2 lambda 2 x2. So this equal to minus x2 minus 2 lambda 1 x2 plus lambda 2 minus 2 lambda 2 x2. In the Euler-Lagrange equations, we have another set of equations. So this is just given by this x dot equal to f. Equal to f. So this is actually the same as our constraint, just given by this x1 dot equal to, that's given by our constraint. So it's minus x1 plus x2 square plus u, and this x2 dot, that's given by minus x2 plus x2 square. So these are the Euler-Lagrange equations. And in order to solve this equation, we also need the boundary conditions. We also need the boundary conditions. So for the boundary conditions, because the x10 and x20 are given, because the x10 and the x20, we know both are equal to 0. So because x10 and x20 are given, or say fixed, are given, or say fixed, so we have this lambda 1, 0, and lambda 2, 0 to be free. These two are free. So this is the first set of boundary condition. And the second boundary condition so for the second set of boundary condition, so it's because the x11 and x21 are free. Because the x11 and x21 are free. So in this case, remember our equation for lambda at the time of Tf, the lambda 1 is given by this d psi dxf. So this is our equation. And here, remember our psi is given by x11 minus x21 square. So we have this lambda 1 equal to this d psi dx1 x11 d psi dx1. So we have the equation for psi. So this is given by 2 x11 minus x21. So lambda 21 is given by d psi dx21. So this is given by this 2 x11 minus x21 minus and here. So this is given by minus 2 x11 plus 2 x21. these are the solutions to this problem. So in this problem, we can see we derive an algebra equation to represent optimal control input in terms of the state vector. So here, we know this u star is a function, so it's a function of the state vector and the control input. But in this case, this function only depends on the lambda. Here is lambda. So this u is in terms of the state vector and the Lagrange multiplier. But in this special function, it only depends on the Lagrange multiplier, the first Lagrange multiplier. So after this, because the Lagrange multiplier is unknown, so we require the set of differential equations to solve for the Lagrange multiplier. So here we have the differential equation for the Lagrange multiplier, and we also have this equation from the original constraint, the differential equation. So we have these four differential equations, and there are four unknowns. So we are able to solve these four unknowns. So in order to solve this differential equation, we also need the boundary conditions. For all the boundary conditions. So it's typically difficult to solve the differential equation by hand. Then we require the computer program to help us to solve this problem. And the typical method is the shooting method. A shooting method from here. So we can try different starting point until we hit our final destination. Okay, so that's all for today. So next week we will discuss some further examples to help you to understand.